And in today, you're listening to the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer, where I talk with authors, artists, and entertainers. We talk about their process, we also talk about their projects, and overcoming obstacles. Thank you for checking out the show. All right, everybody. So today for the show, we have a great guest for you. Micah Bonn is here on the phone with us in the studio. And how are you doing today, Micah?
I'm good. Very excited to be part of this.
I'm really excited to have you back on too. It's been a while since you've been in the studio, and I'm happy for us to be able to catch up today. Got some new music, and you got some other cool stuff going on. Do you mind giving everybody just a short introduction about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I am a fiddler and a singer-songwriter. I live in Claxton, Georgia, and I've been fortunate to be able to play up and down the coastal area of Georgia, and travel a good bit, toured the Midwest and northern states as well. In 2019, I won the Georgia Female Country Artist of the Year from the Georgia Country Awards, and that was definitely something that I was very grateful to have won. And I also in 2016, I won the John Hartford Memorial Songwriting Contest in Indiana, which is a national songwriting competition. And John Hartford is one of my musical heroes. So that was another special, event. And anyway, I've lived in Nashville for about 2 years. I moved back to Georgia around the pandemic, when it hit. And but I'm still involved in music, and I'm still putting out music on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page. You can find me on those at Micah Bonn. I'm just, a young, passionate musician.
I think that's awesome. Sebastian plays live music as well, and I always have him play something on our show. So I'm going to have him take it away and play a little live music in the studio.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Bass. That was great. Wow.
Could you hear it, Micah?
Yeah. Was that one of your own compositions, Sebastian?
Is that one of your original?
Yeah, I just made it up.
He noodles all the time, and I'm like, what? So.
Wow. It sounded very classical.
Yeah. Was that an Ovation?
Yeah, it's the Ovation. I think it's Celebrity Series.
See, Mike, most of the time he doesn't do a whole lot of talking, but I was thinking today because you're a guest and, y'all had known each other from the Randy Wood
right.
annual
jam. I thought maybe I could get him out of his shell a little bit today.
Well, I'm glad you're with us, Sebastian. Thank you for playing that.
Thank you.
You're quite a guitar player too, and you're a fiddler, right? And what other instruments do you play too?
Yeah. So I'm primarily a fiddler or violinist. I guess I'm really somewhere in between. So I often refer to myself as a fiddlist.
Ah, nice.
But I also play the guitar, acoustic and electric, and that's become a big part of my show.
Mm-hmm.
But I also play the mandolin and banjo. On the banjo, I play two different styles because there's Scruggs style, which is the bluegrass, very famous way of playing it. Then there's also the older way of playing it called clawhammer, which I do, and that's more of a strumming pattern. And it was actually it's the African way of playing the banjo because banjo comes from Africa.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's really cool. It's very rhythmic, and I just really it loops. And it's really good for accompanying yourself too, like because I'm a singer and I enjoy kind of strumming the songs. So anyway, but I also play the mandolin, and mandolin is thought of primarily as a bluegrass instrument, but I've always things in the mandolin, like the way that it can be applied to jazz,
Mm-hmm.
and even punk rock. So that's another part of what I do in my show is to explore the other aspect of these pretty traditional instruments, doing unexpected things on them.
I think that's really cool. Speaking of music, you have a cover of "I Will Survive," and that you sent to me earlier, and I'd like to go ahead and play that for the audience.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now, everybody, we had a thunderstorm, so if we lose connection or power, I'll just gonna apologize in advance. And if there's, I've got some songs downloaded, so we're gonna be able to play it. But I'm crossing my fingers that my internet connection will work because I'm doing this off my phone. And but here's Micah's version of "I Will Survive."
At first I was afraid, I was petrified. Kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. But I spent oh so many nights just thinking how you did me wrong. And I grew strong, and I learned how to get along. And so you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you here with that sad look upon your face. I should have changed my stupid lock. Should have made you leave your key. If I'd known for just 1 second you'd be back to bother me. Go on now, go. Walk out the door. Just turn around now. You're not welcome anymore. Hey, weren't you the one who tried to hurt me with goodbye? You thought I'd crumble. Did you think I'd lay down and die? Oh, not I will survive. As long as I know how to love, I know I'll stay alive. I got all my life to live, and I've got all my love to give. And I will survive. I will survive. Ooh. Only the Lord can give me strength not to fall apart. I try hard to mend the pieces of my broken heart, and I spent oh so many nights feeling sorry for myself. I used to cry, but now I hold my head up high, and you see me, somebody new. I'm not that chained up little person, so in love with you. Well, you felt like dropping in, and you expect me to be free. Well, I'm saving all my loving for someone who's loving me. Go on now, go. Walk out the door. Just turn around now. You're not welcome anymore. Weren't you the one who tried to hurt me with goodbye? You thought I'd crumble. You thought I'd lay down and die. Oh, not I will survive. Yeah, as long as I know how to love, I know I'll stay alive. And I've got all my life to live, and I've got all my love to give, and I'll survive. Yeah, I will survive. Now I know I will survive.
Okay.
National Weather Service in Charleston has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for portions of Lynn County in southeastern Georgia, Chatham County in southeastern Georgia,
God dang.
Jasper County in southeastern South Carolina until 4:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Turn that radio down.
Eastern Daylight Time. A severe
All right, let's try this. If you can hear me, the weather alert was going off, and I'm not really sure. I've never had that happen before, so I do apologize, everybody, if you're tuning in still and listening. I thought it was still going, so all right, it just shut off. So okay.
Bad weather in Savannah today?
Yeah, we had some little mild thunderstorm, and then I guess the weather alert came over, and it was kind of weird because it came over right at the end of your song, and I was like, okay, so
Hey, I should have put that in the recording.
I know, right? It's so weird. I don't know what happened. I've never had that happen before. I know that the weather alert and all comes on if it has to, but this is the first for me
It's
for the
fine.
radio. Yeah. So, but that was a great version of "I Will Survive." You did a really nice version of that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I thought that that song is such an anthem, and it really. I just believe in in the power of that songs have to lift people and to inspire hope, and just that song is so well written that I think it always does that, no matter where it's performed or how it's performed. And for some reason, it seems to fit the violin pretty well, which was not something I was expecting. And I was really just trying it out. Like, oh, wouldn't that be silly if I played, I Will Survive on the violin? But it really started to take on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And the way I perform it is looped. So I lay down, all the tracks and start building the song in real time. And I just kind of felt like the song arranged itself. It was a very exciting process.
Okay. Sorry, I just got a notice saying that severe thunderstorms in Chatham County until 4:15. So, but yeah, no. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. I love the little violin solo that you did too towards the end of it. It was pretty cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. That is always just so much fun to play.
That is, that's one of those classic songs that you always hear that when you got somebody who they've had a bad relationship and they're like, I'm gonna get out of it and I will survive, and so that's
Absolutely.
I've heard that from different people from over the years. So
yeah, and the fact that I'm not sure exactly who wrote it. Perhaps it was Gloria Gaynor. I know she's the one that made it so famous. But,
right.
That song, just the lyrics and the melody of it, it seems to wrap up a lot of emotions and just present them all so well. And it's like a beacon of light.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that is something that people need. Like you could, the power of music can help you change the momentum of a lot of things. Um,
Hmm.
it's kind of crazy, but you think about it because it. I don't know what it does to us psychologically or physiology or like our physical. But have you ever felt it when there's like a song that you really connect with, and you hear it, and it just sends chills down your spine?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, music is a transcendent thing. It and it always just fascinates me because I sit and I wonder, like, what is it about music that seems, so transcendent? But it's like it appeals to us, like, as to our animal nature,
Mm-hmm.
rhythm. It inspires movement and seems to kind of hijack our brains almost, in a good way. And so there's kind of that songbird aspect to it, but then also it encapsulates um, the philosophical side
Mm-hmm.
as well. I guess that could be the higher brain, because the brain has parts that are lower, that are more animalistic, and then parts that are higher, which are abstract thought. So music, especially songs with lyrics, appeals to both sides simultaneously. So you can be moved by a song, and you're you're tapping your feet,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like a sparrow bobbing its head, but at the same time, it can affect you emotionally and make you reflect and really think. Um, so there are a few things that I've encountered um, that work like that so well, the way that music does, and appeals to both sides of our humanity and of our animal side.
Yeah, and that's a theme that you have with some of your music too. Like the one that really got me was the when you did the "Do Right" song,
Hmm.
where it was kind of like a tribute to the old B style horror movies.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. Like and then you got the I don't know, that video is a really I thought it was really well made. But when you're talking about like music appealing to like our I guess our primitive side or whatever, that video and the song reminds me of that. Like kind of like how
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a werewolf and a half cat, So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an original song.
Yeah. You've done quite a few original songs.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've been writing since an early age,
Mm-hmm.
and even before I discovered music, I always wanted to be a writer, and it's just kind of the way I saw the world and made sense of the world. So anyway, I've been I continue to write songs, and it's just a never-ending exploration, which can seem overwhelming because
Mm-hmm.
you have all these ideas and you wonder, how can I put them all together? How can I present them in a way that other people will connect with them and can touch their souls and their past experiences and all the wonderful things that songs can do. So it can seem overwhelming, but it's actually that process of figuring all that out and sorting it out and presenting it is just a joyful thing because you get better at your craft and you start to realize the way that things affect people and how you can better communicate your ideas. And with you being a writer, I'm sure that you've had probably the same experience. It's very, like I said, it can be overwhelming, but it's so worth it and so energizing.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And finishing is also really a major part of it because they're like you producing your music and publishing it, putting it out there for people to be able to enjoy it. That there's a magic in that as well, because there are a lot of people that they will work on a project but they won't finish. They kind of get caught up in the, like the devil's in the details. And it becomes overwhelming because they're not really sure, because, for example, we might have a vision of how we want something to be, right? We want this painting to look this way or that, I'll just use painting as an example. So if you see a beautiful flower that you want to paint and you're just starting off as a painter, you're not going to have the same skills or level of painting that someone who's been doing it for, 5 years or 10 years or even 3 or 4 months, because you're just starting off. And I think there's a lot of magic though in the doing, and there's also a lot of magic in the finishing. So you finish it, you look at like, okay, well, I learn this, and then you improve it for the next time. Because let me ask you, as an artist, when you first started doing your songs to today, do you feel like you've grown a lot as an artist?
Oh, absolutely. And I do feel that way. And like I said, I think about this a lot. So if you have a high standard for yourself and you're always trying to reach that, it can, like I said, it can seem overwhelming because you have this vision in your mind. Right. And what you do, oftentimes, like, you can be your own worst critic, and you can, I guess, not appreciate the inspiration, like the good things they're in your work, whereas other people can see them. But really, I learned recently that the the purpose of painting is not, being an artist and everything, whether it's painting, dancing, music, writing, anything. The purpose of painting is to not paint a masterpiece every time. It's just to paint. Right. And that's kind of the artistic process. That's really at the heart of it. And you think that, if I can just like finish this one project, then that will be it, and I'll have arrived, whatever that is, or I'll feel artistically satisfied. So then you finish that project, and then congratulations, it's done. But then you're thinking, what's next? And then other people are thinking, what's next? So the joy is not actually in finishing something, although that is, very satisfying and it's necessary. You have to finish your work. You can't just have half-finished sketches everywhere. But the actual joy is in the process of getting your hands dirty and doing the work, because that is where you grow, and that's where you are alive in the moment, and you're morphing. You're an object in motion. So you're becoming whenever you are actually doing the little details, working on something, and that's where growth happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the part I was talking about with finishing, for an example, like if you're working on a book and you write the first draft, that's you telling the story for yourself. It's like like a discovery draft, Jessica Brody, she was talking about that with her book, a cat. What was it? Save the Cat writes a novel. Yeah, I'm sorry, I had a brain cramp for a second. But you finish it, and then you go back and you do, the editing, and you do the touch up, and you go through and all that other stuff. And the finishing, and when I'm talking about the finishing it, there is a magic in doing it, like you're talking about, and you learn as you grow, and that's where the growth is. The finishing part is like where, like if you leave something undone, let's say for example a painting, you leave it undone, and then 3 or 4 years from now you come back to it, it will never be the same. Even if you start working on it again, it would never be the same as if you finish it in that one period when you were working on it. Yeah. Same thing with the book, because you've grown as a person, you've changed as a person, right? And so the part about finishing, and this is why, like when you're talking about the overwhelming part with creating, that is part of how you get through the overwhelm is finishing. It's like, hey, and then I agree with you completely about like when you're like, hey, what's next? Because especially when you set big goals, like for example, like going to school or something like that. I remember when I went to college. I was not old, but I was older, and so I graduated with my undergrad in 2008 when the housing market crashed. And so I was working towards this goal. I was like wanting to get a different job, a better job with my education, and had management experience, things like that. And then the housing market crashed, and it was like, well, what do you do now? Because the job market, just kind of shriveled up, and so that can happen with art. It can happen with anything. It's like if you don't have, I'm always talking with my kids and my friends, and like if you have to have different things in the pipeline, like a river doesn't have just one boat in it, and so when you have multiple things that you want to do or you want to work on, you finish one, you move on to the next, and not just like, I'm not talking about like assembly line factory type stuff, like A boom, A boom, A boom, just keep making a bunch of those little widgets. But it is cool, like like when you're making these music videos, or you're writing a song or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I've got tons of stuff that I've just not finished, just left little snippets or whatever that I've written. But with the other books and stuff like that, there's books that I've finished and I'm like, okay, this is great, but now I need to move on to the next project, and I think it's kind of weird because with art, it's so subjective for everybody, right? But I think one of the things with music that I really appreciate is that it is kind of universal, and it's something that really touches everybody, and then that's why there's so many genres of music, right? It's just like there's so many different movies, there's so many different books, there's so many different video games, like there's 10 different million ways of making, an apple pie, you know what I mean? So,
right.
But there's only like one right way to do it. That's the way I like. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think you're very wise for that. I think and I don't you're what, 18 or 19?
I'm actually 20.
Oh, congratulations! Yeah, I've always felt like you're a very very wise person for your age, especially because I've talked with you a couple different times with interviews and stuff like that, and you just always seem very mature and wise for your age, and so that's always really neat.
Well, thank you. I guess I have you fooled. Thank you, though. But yeah, it's really cool, to be working on something and just to apply yourself and to see what would happen. See what would happen if you did apply yourself. And and it's so cool that even though, like, I'm a musician and you write books and short stories and you could talk with someone who is a filmmaker or a dancer, and you start to see that there's really, like you were saying, there's a universal
storytelling.
Right.
It comes back to storytelling. Yeah. Because with a painting or music or whatever, it's all telling something to somebody, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the medium can change, with what you're working on. You could be, doing ceramics, but the art of perfecting something, of excuse me, I can talk, I promise, of breaking through plateaus and, taking a project from start to finish. There's really, it's the same thing that, of excellence.
Well, it helps build confidence too, the doing, because often people have like, an idea, oh, I'd love to, I'd love to be able to sing like Micah does, or I'd love to be able to play the fiddle, like she does. And, they think that, like, I mean, first of all, it is very special that you do that, but they think that there's something that they aren't able to do themselves. Like, it's like, oh, they don't understand, like, it goes through the practice and the doing and the learning and, the hours and hours and hours on end of, the work. And there is a lot of magic to that, but it's, if someone were to ask, the 10-year-old Micah, hey, Micah, please play this song all the way through and sing every note, on key and, versus asking the 20-year-old Micah, you both have different versions of it, but you got 10 years in between, and all the work that you've done. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand is like there's a lot of, there's a lot that goes into the work, but you should enjoy it as you do it.
Yeah, that's a very cool way of thinking about it. Each work is a snapshot, a moment in time, which should be honored. And you should appreciate yourself in all stages of, for lack of a better word, your artistic journey. I feel like the word journey is so overused these days, but process. Process would probably be a better word to use.
Leveling up.
Of your leveling up. So if you are someone who is a beginner on the violin, wanting to learn to play, or if you are just taking up dancing or whatever your passion is, and you think, I want, you have something in your mind and you feel like what you're doing is not, you don't feel absolutely satisfied, because you're thinking about where you want to go, you should just appreciate where you are and honor that, because and again, get your hands dirty and learn to love the work of doing it.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that. I completely agree with you on that.
Treasure trove riches.
I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you again. Go ahead. What did you say?
It's okay.
Treasure trove of what?
No, it's fine. It's your treasure trove of riches. It's right there in front of you. Because when I was learning the violin, I felt frustrated. I mean, it's a very hard instrument. Let's just be real. Like the bow, like what is that, right? But, so it can seem kind of unapproachable, like the piano as well. But anyway, but the joy is not whenever you learn to play Bach or whenever you learn to play, Cotton Eye Joe. It's in learning to play Twinkle Twinkle and in just making a sound on the instrument. And I wish, like, if I could talk to myself, 10 years ago, 'cause it's crazy to think that I've been playing for over 10 years now, I would tell myself that, don't delay your artistic satisfaction. Like, appreciate where you are, even if you're not where you want to be. The only person that you are competing with artistically is yourself yesterday.
Yeah.
Just different versions of yourself. So, anyway, that's
wonderful. That is I could talk about that all day for a long time. I mean, like remember when we were talking about the when we were just doing the article, we were talking for like an hour and a half. So
yeah.
Well,
there's so much to cover.
Oh yeah.
It's good to compare notes.
Yeah, I think it's cool the way that you said that, because that's something that I have thought about and talked about, especially with different, because you go through different things in life, right? And at different ages, different stages, whatever, it doesn't matter. I can remember when I was 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, my big thing back then was I couldn't go to school, so I had to work. And I was like, well, if I've got to work, I'm going to work my way into management. I had my first management job when I was 18 because I just had that determination to do it. And I wasn't in, honestly, I used to love to sketch and draw, but as a young person, I was like, well, that's not really going to help me with a job, And so instead of, developing my art, what I did was I went into business and leadership and those kind of things. So I started doing the art again in 2013 because it was just a creative outlet for me because of stress at my job. And I was like, I need
Right.
something, and like with the writing, I'm not an award-winning author. I have published books, and I've been a published journalist for about 7 years, but I am not an award-winning writer or author or anything like that. But what I try to do is I always try to focus on the person that I'm interviewing and talk about them. The things come and go. Like your music, it's a thing. You are the person, and I find that those stories are a lot more interesting because the things, like our interests change, and you might be playing like something today, and then like 5 years from now it'd be like, oh yeah, I picked up the harpsichord and I've been learning how to play that, blah, blah, blah. Or you might take up ballet, or you might do whatever. Those
Yeah.
things come and go, but the person, who you are, as you're doing different things, or as you're developing as a person, you grow. So like when you're saying, man, if I could tell the 10-year-old me, I mean, you kind of just told the 30-year-old you that. You know what I mean? So that way,
Yeah.
when you're looking back, you're like, oh well, and it's cool because like there's a lot of kids, I say kids, young adults, I should say. I'm sorry. But there are a lot of young adults that, they've been heavily influenced by social media and, video games and, just like an online inundation, like with marketing and sales and, of like, you should be like this or you should be like that, and it's just neat to hear you talking about, working on things that you enjoy doing and that you enjoy sharing with other people. Especially with your art or your creativity.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, you have to follow your own bliss, and if they want to support you in that, that's amazing. But if sometimes even if you feel like, no one is listening, or if no one quite understands what you're doing, that's okay too. I have a violin student who's, I should say fiddle student actually, who she's around my age, and she used to play the fiddle and kind of gave it up, or moved on to other things and is coming back to it. And she talks a lot about how, her siblings and friends don't understand why she wants to play the fiddle, because it's not, super, they at least don't see it as being mainstream. And I try to encourage her to know that, in 20 years, what's going to matter to you more? The opinion of the people that you're around at this time, and, even their opinions change and are highly malleable, or what your spirit is telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And, her spirit is telling her that she has music in her that she needs to get out and in her fingers. And anytime that, you're excited about the possibility of something, or I don't know if you ever get that kind of giddy feeling at, just the idea of a possibility.
Can I share something with you about that?
Yeah.
Because when you feel that, that's when you know it's very special. Because it is so rare to feel that feeling when you're doing
Absolutely.
something, especially when it's, that you say, for instance, you've been playing the fiddle for 10 years. When you feel that feeling and you're like, oh, this is something really special, because it is so rare and not everybody gets to feel that, that you should just go with it, because a lot of people,
Absolutely.
they, you get into the adult world and you have to pay for bills. You have to go to work and do, things that you don't enjoy all the time. And so when you get a chance to do something creatively and you feel that magic, that je ne sais quoi, ride it all the way out.
Absolutely. Even kind of when you maybe don't feel it,
Yeah.
It's okay if it's elusive. But if you it's almost like following a trail, in
Yeah,
the woods.
yeah.
I think Tennessee Williams referred to it as the fog. He spent his whole life chasing the fog, which was, is a figurative term. But
Right.
But whenever you do feel that giddiness at the idea of doing something, that's the potential in you responding to it.
Right.
Because you're not just who you are now, you're also who you could be. And that part of you that is yet to be manifested, that, you know, the part of the young child who could become a concert pianist, or, you know, the part of someone who could become an acclaimed author, is actually responding to that stimulus. So anytime that, you know, you feel like you should do something that stretches you, even if it's kind of scary, you should, you know, that's the time to put away insecurity or thoughts of, oh, I couldn't do that, or it's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, chase the fog,
Yeah,
as Williams would say.
I saw that's so awesome. I saw this talking about learning as an adult. I saw this video the other day, and I wish I had paid attention to who said it, but I thought it was really interesting. But you know, as a child, and as you grow into young adulthood, your brain is still very malleable until you're about 25 or 26 years old. And when people create things, though, when they're doing, you know, something that they like to do, and they're creating something, you know, say for instance with the fiddle, you know, somebody picks it up at 30, 35, 40. You know, I know you said that you'd had, you know, some older students before that you helped. When they start doing that, they're creating those connections again in their brain, like, you know, like in childhood, and their brain becomes more malleable, and it has those little dendrites that they're growing, and they're learning something new. And
Right.
it's I don't know how to say it, but there are some people that they will do a job for 20 years. The first year that they learn the job, they do that for the next 20 years. And then there are other people that they learn a job, and they learn for 20 years as they go. They learn something new every year. They become an expert in their field. Now, they're both probably good at their job, but some people, you know, that they do, you know, they learn for that first year, and then, or maybe not even that long, and then they do the job for, like, you know, the next 20 years the same way. They're not going to have the same experience as the person who tries to learn the little nuances, or the little, you know, the small little things that make things better. And I feel like that's the same way with creating, because, you know, like you start off with a painting or whatever. You might start off with, like, you know, cheap brushes and cheap paint and a cheap canvas, you know, just to get going, right? But then after a while, you're like, well, what if I bought, you know, this $30 brush? I know it's expensive, but I've been painting for a while, and I just want to try it out. And you buy that $30 brush, and then you buy those $50, you know, paints, and you buy that $30 canvas, and you're like, wow, this changed things for me. You know, it's the same painting, you know, but it changed things for me. It's kind of like, I don't know much about playing the instruments, but like Sebastian, you know, maybe you can help me out with this too. But like, the strings make a big difference.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'm sure, Micah, you could talk about that too.
Well, you can feel really
The quality of the strings can make a big difference in the
cheap
sound.
pack of strings can feel a whole lot different.
Yeah,
than
and your instrument.
some different,
You know, it's always good
more
to have an
expensive
instrument
ones.
that's better than you are.
Yeah, a nice
So you have
quality
something
instrument.
to aspire to.
Yeah, it kind of elevates you when you're doing that. You know, it's kind of like, well, you know, like for example, you know, if I'm having a rough day, that's the day that I try to dress my best. I try to look my nicest because I'm feeling crummy. You know what I mean? And you know, when you put something nice on, like, you know, clean shirt and, you know, fresh pants right out of the you know, out of the dryer where they're nice and warm.
Yeah, new socks. Yep.
Yeah, new socks, or when you get some new shoes and you're like, oh man, I love these kicks.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's kind of how I feel about creating, because you're getting to make that, you know, that newness, or that change of, you know, you're growing as a person, and you get to see something different, and you know, you get to try something different out, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. And it can be scary to, you know, to invest in yourself. But at the end of the day, this is your life, and you only get one. And, you know, you might as well dance. You might as well go for it. And if you're going to be doing something over and over again, you know, make it the best that it can be. And the cool thing is, if you are doing like these little tweaks, if you do enough of those and for long enough, it's just radical the difference it can make. There's this concept of being 1% better each day.
Yeah.
Well, you do that for enough days, and you're 365% better. That's
Yeah. I
a
went
big
to
deal. That's
a
huge.
I went to a Tony Robbins seminar one time. Gulfstream had this program called Live Well, Be Well, and Tony Robbins is this speaker. And anyway, he was talking about like the difference between excellent and good enough. Like good and excellent is just like that small little percentage, but the rewards are so infinitesimally different. Like the rewards at excellent level versus good level. It's just like, well, if you do something good enough, people aren't maybe going to complain about it. But if you do something that really stands out, you're either going to get people that are like, wow, or you're going to get like little haters that are like, oh, why'd you do that? You always get people like that. But if you either way, if you're getting people that are like, oh wow, that's really cool, or the little haters, you're doing something. Because if it's just good enough, people aren't going to complain about it. They're not going to really notice it if it's good enough. If it's really bad, they'll be like, oh, what the heck, But if you're kind of like in the middle.
I've heard it said that like whenever you say that you're good at something, you're really not. But whenever other people tell you that you are, then you've got something going. I feel like I can say that because I study jiu-jitsu. In my head, I'm like Bruce Lee, but nobody's like complimenting me on my jiu-jitsu. So.
Oh yeah. I know. I haven't been on the mats in a while, and I love doing it, but I can remember sometimes where like I felt like I deserved a promotion, but I didn't get one. And I wouldn't be jealous of the people getting it, but I'm like, well, what did I do?
Right.
Like I thought I was growing, I thought I was moving, doing all the things right, and and then it's like, well, not quite yet. So,
right. Yeah. Studying martial arts, that's something that'll really
humble you.
Humble you and just put everything into perspective. And it's wonderful. And that's so cool that you've taken BJJ, and I believe we talked about that a little bit last time in our last call.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And it's the same thing for that too. You're striving and difference between good and excellent, and the little 1%. I believe John Danaher calls them micro adjustments. It's the difference between a champion and a non-champion, I guess.
I was listening the other day too. The Michael Jordan story. Like you're competing against yourself. He got rejected for his high school varsity basketball team, and the coach said, he was like, well, you're not gonna make it, and if you don't change, you're not gonna make it next year either. And Jordan was like, well, what do I have to do to make it? And he's like, well, meet me every day for practice, before school. And he did. And then, he, like Bruce Lee, talking about Bruce Lee said that he didn't fear the person who could do 1,000 different kicks. He feared the person that could do one kick 1,000 times, and, if you look at any of the katas of traditional martial arts, or even with jiu-jitsu, the people that are really good, they're not necessarily doing a million different things. They're doing, maybe a combination of a couple different things really, really well. And they might have, like they might be really good at a triangle, or they might be really good at an arm bar, or they might be really good at takedown, or, whatever, but most of the people that I knew when I was rolling, they were good at like maybe they focused on one or two things that they wanted to, be different than other people, or be better at than other people. And, with like Jordan, he said the same thing, that he never competed against other people. He always competed against himself. What made him better than other people was not so much that he had the height, because he didn't, athleticism. He was athletic, but so were all the other NBA players. You know, he was fast, but so were the other players. You know, I mean, like he didn't have anything like physically to make him stand out. Like he wasn't, you know, like 7'4" or something like that. You know, but he practiced and he practiced and he practiced and he practiced, and he had that mental, you know, that mental strength. You know, because he practiced and practiced, and he did. You know, he'd win, but he wouldn't, you know, take it to heart and be like, "Oh, well, we won," like you said earlier about like you, I've arrived. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, he took it in stride, and he would, you know, he would try to improve on the things that he didn't do right, and you know, so, and he was also very, in my opinion, I think he was very humble about it. I don't remember ever hearing him like bragging or, you know, like. He would never say, "Well, I'm the best." You know what I mean? Like some of these guys today,
Yeah.
you know. But everybody said he was the best. You know, so that's one of the things that I really, and I admire that about people that are like, well, my friends that are listening right now, Darlene and Terry Dremel. There's this Swedish term called sisu, and it's just like that fortitude, like that you know, like overcoming adversity and, you know, just stick to itness, you know. And
That's a cool word.
yeah, sisu.
What did you say it was?
Sisu, SISU. And they told me about that, and I was like, oh, I love that term, because, you know, that's how I try to live my life. Is like, you know, you get knocked down, you get back up. Get knocked down, get back up. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. I'll have to look more into that. I love learning new words and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's something I enjoyed doing, is reading and learning about leadership and self-development and, you know, growth. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's such a, you know, not everything is intuitive, and if you're trying to get better, you know, you might as well listen to someone who has, you know, has figured out something, and it'll save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration and, you know, frustration, because instead of you figuring out everything, you know, humble yourself and listen to somebody like, you know, Tony Robbins or Jordan Peterson. He has
I like Jordan Peterson a lot. Yeah, his daughter has a great. His daughter Michaela has a great show as well. She interviews a lot of different people. Yeah, she's super cool. I haven't really listened to her, but I need to. Yeah, she's got a really good show too. Well, and just to add something to what you said, I think you can also learn from people who are older than you, but you can also learn a lot from people who are younger than you as well. So that's just something to throw out there to you. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, I want to close out this hour. I want to play the Do Right song so that we can finish up this hour, and then we'll come back at the 4 o'clock hour.
Okay.
So everybody, here is Micah Bonn's Do Right. It's a really cool video if you get a chance to go on YouTube, and you can watch it for free on YouTube on Micah Bonn's YouTube channel. Just search Micah Bonn, MICAHBONN, and here it is.
Rolling.
Why don't you do right by me? Why don't you do right, baby? Show me some mercy. You won't even try. Why don't you do right? I wish I didn't care. I wish it didn't show. But you know better, and that's what hurts me